All right, I have a special guest on my show today. Her name is Cristina Lopez McLauchlan. I got it right. I said it right. And she is a global citizen, earth and ocean guardian, and a human doing. We're going to hear what she means by human doing today. She has a passion for storytelling and co-creating, and she's merged 20 years of hospitality, brand, and event management with holistic business and lifestyle design, aligning her values. She crafts strategic brand storytelling, sales and marketing scope, and elevates the tribe, which is her clients, through holistic wellness coaching. The Vibe Tribe consults businesses for purpose, supporting the shift to brand your vibe with conscious intent and working to nourish and balance employees to get to know their brand from the inside out. Thank you so much, Cristina, for joining the show today. Appreciate it.
We made it.
We made it. We tried for a little while.
Manifested a few months ago, and we're like, yeah, we made it. And then the days have gone. But
well, you're a busy lady. You're not always in this city. You're bouncing around quite a bit.
Yeah, last year was a great year of doing, the human doing part. And I was away blessedly every month doing little projects here and there. So this year is consolidating, and a little bit less is more. So I don't intend to be away so much, to be a bit more rooted in Hong Kong.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So we might be able to get in touch with you a little bit easier
Hopefully.
This year in 2019.
That's the intention. You never know. I'm a bit of a gypsy.
But you must like to travel around and do different things. I mean, it seems like every time I saw you on Instagram, you were, working with a different client at a different location, or you were working with a wellness retreat somewhere. So you must like the traveling around piece of it somewhere, right?
Yeah, definitely. Travel has been part of my life ever since I was born. So I moved around every 2 to 3 years.
Wow.
So hence the global citizen.
Yes.
I have a New Zealand passport, but people always ask me, where's home? And I have only recently learned that home is internal, and not to look externally, thinking that a specific place had to be home. So I am a traveler, and it's not that I think there's something greener on the other side. I just love the discovery that travel brings. And the older I'm getting, I am seeing that the world is really in my classroom. I learned so much from the tribe of people, the cultures, and how many firsts do you get in life? And when you travel, that's an opportunity to spark a different side of our spirit and our mind for first-time experiences, which become more rare as we develop, I think.
It's so true. I mean, I'm the son of a military parent. My dad was in the Air Force, and we moved around a lot, but it was all within the continental U.S. And sort of like a typical Americans. My wife and I didn't even have passports until we got the call to move to Hong Kong with her company.
Really?
So that probably sounds pretty crazy. But
is
it's
that
actually
like a typical American thing?
I mean, there are certainly Americans that are well traveled, but
Yeah.
it is a typical American thing to not have a passport, and just because there's so many things to see within our country.
For sure. Which is great.
But we have this whole new appreciation now for, having the opportunity to travel and learn about different cultures and different places in the world, and why this beach is fabulous and this beach over here is fabulous, and understanding the pros and cons of different cultures and communities, and appreciating them for what they are is something you can read about. You can hear your friends talk about it.
Not the same.
But if you don't experience it, it's
and
different.
you've gifted that to your kids now, so they're one up on you. They're like, they have passports that.
Oh yeah, big time, way
they're
ahead
like,
of us.
We're world seasoned travelers now, Mom and Dad.
That's right. How many stamps do they already have?
Yeah.
It's, my goodness, they've had a lot of opportunity, and that's the most important thing. I mean, we were getting lots of business opportunities, which is great, but the most important thing is their appreciation of the world now, that this new worldview that they have that they could never have had. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things I'm grateful for, and gratitude's used so much now, but truly the opportunity. And you talk about having a passport. For me, whenever I talk about travel, it's a gift, first of all, to have the opportunity to have an identity in the form of a passport, right? So first of all, you get that. You're able to have that identity. And then everything that comes with the travel, the funds that allow you to do that, and then the health that allows you to get on that plane, you know, depending if you're a healthy person and mobile. There's just so many layers to the gift of travel apart from getting to that destination. So there's the cliche of the journey behind before you even get on that plane.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. So that's how I look at travel. It's not just, it's a luxury on so many levels. So yes, I had a great year traveling, but a little bit simplifying a little bit more and trying to grow deeper roots into home base Hong Kong.
When you said you traveled every 2 or 3 years when you were a kid, were one of your parents, did they have to change locations for work? Is that what that was?
So my father is still a hotelier, so manages hotels. So we were fortunate enough to move around every 2 to 3 years. Again, an absolute blessing. But, you know, there was a moment in my life where the blessing became a bit challenging because even though you can probably tell I'm an extrovert, I don't have a problem meeting new people for the first time and having a conversation, which is what I think my upbringing taught me, moving around. But then there was a point in my life, I think in my early 20s or my late teens, when I went to New Zealand again to further my education. And it was a whole different way of lifestyle where people went, you know, maybe it's the same in the States. Probably everyone went to kindergarten together and then middle school. And there were these deep rooted connections and friendships that spanned decades that had a lot of depth to it that made me back then feel totally out of place and inappropriate. Yes. So I felt like the black sheep when I went back to New Zealand because people were talking about, oh, you know, when we were this and we were that, and I couldn't relate to that emotion of way back then because I always had to make new friends. And so there was a plus and a bit of a negative side to it too.
Yeah, I felt that. I was always the new kid.
Right.
My last move was when my dad retired, which was my sophomore year in high school. So I was moving. It wasn't like it was every year. We moved 4 times if you include the move back to Kansas, which is where all of our roots are.
Yeah.
But I think there's something to be said about it. Sort of molds your interpersonal skills, like. Either that or you just don't meet anybody or have any friends. Because if you're the new kid, there's not always going to be, especially in the teen years, there's not always going to be this outreach of effort by kids to bring you into their clan.
For sure.
I think that hopefully has been something that's helped us as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? To thinking of it now, and if you look at it like in a psychological aspect, how did that potentially shape us? And a lot of the, you know, as we continue the chat, it's really interesting where I'm at in this particular stage of my life where I'm deprogramming the program. And I turned 43. I'm saying that on air.
Yay. But see, we're both in our 40s, and but we're, you know, feeling good and
so
talking
good.
about wellness. Right?
Like I think I'm at that sweet spot, and long may it last for at least a couple more decades. But I someone was saying, oh, and they were only turning 35. They're like, I'm having a midlife crisis. And I looked at her like, a midlife what? And he's like, first of all, you're turning 35. Secondly, I said, how about you look at it this way? It's not a midlife crisis. It's actually a midlife awakening. And that's how I'm interpreting this social term that we've called like midlife crisis too. It's actually, for me, the awakening or the awareness of what my life in the past 30 to 40 years has consisted of, to as far back as I can remember. And what is it that has served me, and what are the things that haven't? And usually that's why I personally think there's this massive shift where people think it's a crisis because they're all of a sudden wanting to run a marathon, or they're like, I'm actually going to buy that boat that I, don't have any money for. It's kind of this carpe diem thing, because we've realized, wow, we're at this point. There's the finish line is who knows when the finish line even is, but let's do what we want to do.
Yeah.
And so I think we see that as a crisis, but it's kind of more like, well, actually, the person's probably just woken up a little bit and realized what's important. So I put that forward to my friend. I'm like, why don't we shift the language and introduce it that way? Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. It's almost like you're coming across this wisdom of this curriculum of whatever it is that's led you to that place. And you can look at it as something that's scary, like, oh, maybe I'm halfway through this journey. Or you can look at it as, I've got all of this data. And I'm going to use all the stuff. Like I always say, take 1% from everybody. I'm going to use all those things that I learned, create my own wellness curriculum, and just shoot for the next 40. Let's
for sure.
Let's be as strong as we can be. Let's be as healthy as we can be. Let's pay attention to, everybody around us as much as we can. So,
and that in itself is a gift, for, I think, and some people will resonate with this kind of discussion we're having, and some will be like, I have no idea what you guys are talking about. What 5 are you talking about? But I'm all for using the past in a positive way, and trying not to go back to story so much that can sometimes weigh us down. Well, I'm talking from personal experience. Story has weighed me down quite a bit, and really like letting go of that anchor and rising up and using that. Yeah,
you're right. It is a gift. It's a gift. It's almost like, is a glass half full or half empty, and how you approach it. I think you mentioned gratitude briefly. I think that is something that really can help with that on a daily basis. And if you're just introducing that, even if I've said this study 1,000 times on my show, but 5 minutes of gratitude journaling every day improves your long-term health by 10%.
Totally.
You're not going to feel like you wasted your time after you just did that. You're going to feel better.
And you can't, it's so true. And, Paul, my journey into this has been, I'm a kindergarten student still in this awareness space, or in this spiritual path, whatever we want to call it, but purposeful, conscious daily path, basically. But, it's kind of, gratitude for me at the beginning was the 5-minute, making it part of the ritual and the routine, almost like brushing your teeth. It was just like, I had to do it because they say it takes 21 days to create a habit. So do it for 21 days, and, don't have it by your bedside, and set an alarm. And it just became something where it shifted my emotion. So if we look at it in a holistic sense, mental wellness, relationships, how I interacted with people. You can't be angry or sad when you're truly grateful. Don't just go through the motions like, I'm grateful for my cat and I'm grateful that I had chocolate, and I'm grateful, but really like ask yourself, what are you grateful for? And now for me, it's not 5 minutes at the end of the day or the beginning. It's a consistent thing that I allow myself to go into, like, riding the bus here. I rode the bus, and I was listening to your last podcast with Sonali. Whoop, whoop, shout out.
Yay, Sonali.
Yay, Sonali. So I was letting myself, as I listened to that, I was looking at outside, and I was like grateful for the fact that I could see trees, or that I have sight. It's just like the basic things. And some people might think that's a bit deep, but I try and make it part of as much as my day as I can, so that I remember that I'm actually the very small percentage in this world that has a privileged life. Like, to really remember what my problems are. They are challenges, but really, it's pretty darn cool. It's pretty darn cool.
That's so. I want to make sure we hit this point, because I think this is interesting. Is making that step or evolution from it just being a habit to making it transcend into something that just is. So I've heard about meditation kind of going through that same process. So like you do your 10 minutes with your Headspace app or whatever, which I think is fantastic.
One Giant Mind. Shout out Johnny Pollard.
Oh, I'll check it out.
Check it out.
We'll put it in the show notes. Everything we talk about will be in the show notes for everybody. So I heard, I think it was Sam Harris said, who also has a meditation app coming out, that when you get really good at meditation, it's not just that 10-minute practice. It's almost like learning a language. Like once you become fluent in a language, your brain is just on autopilot. It just is. So is that kind of what you mean? Like now that you've kind of put in the work and laid that groundwork, now you can just sort of, that's just sort of there for you to pull from without thinking about it, or do you still have to consciously go there?
There are more moments. There's a bigger piece of the pie that is just a knee-jerk reaction, and it's just now part of my vibe. Mm-hmm. There are still moments that I have to do the work, the deeper work, and remind myself to be grateful when, you know, normal human being has emotions and things that I find are challenging. I need to remind myself, and that's where I go. I go to a place of gratitude. But more and more, I'd say 60 to 70, like honestly, it's a state of my vibe and being now. I definitely, especially, well, it's not since even turning 43, it's been the past year and a half. I'm definitely waking up each morning with a stretch and I'm alive. Like I woke up. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, I've had friends that have been ill. There are more people that I know, and it comes with getting more mature on this earth that are passing to the next cycle of life. So it just makes you really realize. I was even saying, wow, I'm going to sleep at night, and I just think I'm going to wake up tomorrow. Mm-hmm. It's just odd. I mean, we all do it. I certainly did. I was just like, oh, good night, honey, you know. Not that I have a honey to say goodnight to right now, but good night or see you or last text or whatever. And then tomorrow it's like planning the day and all of that. And it's not a negative thought that I'm trying to put in, but I started thinking like, wow, like the fact that I opened my eyes, took a breath, got to land my feet down, I'm healthy. It's like, that is a awesome gift. And that's my first gratitude. And that's automatic now. I don't even have to sit there and be like, but I do, take a moment. It's part of my morning ritual. Yeah.
I like that. Actually, I think I'm going to try that because I usually get up at 4:30 or 5, and my thought is not, I'm thankful that I am putting my foot out of bed. I'm saying that this is early.
You're like,
I've been doing this for a long time.
I need 5 cups of coffee.
Yeah, exactly. So that's actually really cool. And it's always just a joke with my personal training clients and group class folks that come to my early stuff is, oh, the hardest part's, you know, putting that first foot on the ground, and then everything else is easy after that. Joking because, you know, the session itself is usually a good challenge, but I like that better. I like the mindfulness beginning as soon as you put your foot down and just being thankful that you're healthy enough to get up, even if it is before the crack of dawn.
Yeah. Or even, you know, I use myself now in my life as a full experiment. So now I'm trying to, I'm kind of seeing when I wake up and I open my eyes to just lie there for a moment and observe what's around me, whether it's cracks in the ceiling or, you know, just kind of look and just be there, even if it's for 10 to 15 seconds, just like lie there and like, whoa, okay, this is cool. I see this all the time, but, you know, and just then move. So take the first few moments. And I think it's also because of the work we do. We are up at that time, which I love. I love it. It's just the earth is asleep.
Oh, especially in Hong Kong, right?
It's like when I teach at
nice.
6 a.m. and I have the door open and then I'm like, listen.
Yeah.
It's just like silence. It's like, this is golden, guys.
Yes, it is.
So people go, why do you wake up that early? And I'm like, try it. Have you heard of the 5 a.m. Club book?
Yeah,
I mean, I've been doing 5 a.m. for 20 years now. So for me, I'm like, it's part of my day. But now more and more studies are showing, right, getting up at that time and productivity levels and obviously the biorhythm of the sleep and what's happening. So, but yeah, that's my next thing is sight before I roll over.
Well, yeah, that's still a really good start because I think, you know, with our phones and our computers and everything, like just getting into that parasympathetic state after your day has started is obviously really challenging. That's why meditation is sort of becoming more and more popular, because people are realizing that they're not ever going into a parasympathetic state.
Yeah.
And so they're shutting down at the end of the day. And so I like that just little start focusing, instead of the first thing you do when you roll over is up, let's see if there's any messages. And I think that's a good start to the day.
But it's interesting because it's part of, even I have to train myself daily, because the work that we do, or the messaging that we do in our line, it is very much social media is the platform, and also for the people and the brands that I've been supporting and help, it's part of the deal. But for me, what I've very much been doing, especially for the past year, because I'm a believer in walk your talk as integrally and authentically as you can. So if you're going to teach your students or talk to clients or coach, do that with what you say. So 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock, phone is off.
Wow.
Phone is off. There might be times where I'm on at 9 if I'm chatting to a friend or if I have to finish something, but usually the phone will be off by then. And it's interesting because it will be on airplane mode and no one can get hold of me, knock on wood, should an emergency happen. But that's usually my rule. And it's a time for me to have that decompression from the day and that rise for the day to come, and do the rituals and just connect, hopefully face to face with someone. And if not, connect with yourself, be at home without that. It's so distracting. I mean, it's not distracting. It's also so useful, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what a great invention.
Yes.
but it's also, what did we do beforehand? Oh, and what were we doing with our hands more? Let's be more dexterous. Let's cook in the kitchen at 8 instead of ordering. Let's doodle or write poetry or, I don't know, just do stuff with our hands that are more dexterous rather than this or scrolling. So and have the face-to-face conversations. Plan what I like doing is trying to plan to have dinner or catch up with a friend around that time, and my phone is off because I'm spending 2 hours with my friend. I don't need to be on this. I'd rather have a convo face-to-face and laugh and connect.
Yeah, that's good.
But it's practice. It's hard, especially in the city that we live in. Everything is, even you and me, we've been chatting online where maybe we could have just done, hey, yo, dude, what's up, right?
That's true. So we probably would have accomplished it faster. But
we're all part of the machine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's talk about Vibe Tribe. I want to talk about your company, one of your companies.
One of my vibes.
Yes, one of your vibes.
So many.
So you started it back in New Zealand. And about what year was it? And what was your initial objective with it? And what has it sort of evolved to now?
Okay, so we're now 2018. So 2014, 2015. I was actually living in Singapore at the time, and met my then partner, who also happens to be a New Zealander, and we decided to repatriate back to New Zealand after me being away for a decade and him being away for 2. And I, for the first time after working for 20 years in my life, had the opportunity, thanks to him, to not have to work for any financial gain. So, at that moment there was wow, this is the different chapters of Cristina. So I was wow, that's cool. Don't need to work, and I can just explore more of my yoga and do this and that. But it led me to being quite, lack for a better term, lost. My compass wasn't working very well. Anyway, long story short, we moved back to New Zealand. And as I was navigating, I had to go back and do the work that I had learned, what I try and coach people on, which is, what is your purpose? And boy, talk about roller coaster, 3 to 4 months. There would be moments I'd be crying in the living room and just not knowing what I was doing with my day. Because if you're so used to having a schedule of some sort for 20 years, and then you think it's a cool thing to not have to work because you can kind of create work that you want to do. But I think both of us at that time in the relationship thought that it would be easier to find what my purpose was. It'd be like, oh, fine, I don't have to work. Great. This is what I've always wanted to do. I wasn't there yet. So the Vibe Tribe was born out of me wanting to create, selfishly, an opportunity for me to meet different community members when I moved back to New Zealand. I was like, okay, I want to create events, because that's my background is events and communications. I want to create events where I will meet people. I was repatriating back to my country. My girlfriends and my friends all at that point already were in their next phase of life with growing families. And so, I had to start from the beginning. So that was it. It was like, oh, let's create some gatherings of 5 or 8, and that's how it began. Really, was more for a self-pacifying reason
Right.
than anything else. And then, so it started in New Zealand, and then as things happen in life, my partner and I parted ways, and had to go through another kind of rebirth of chapter of healing from a lost love and all of that, and reintegrating that navigation into the Vibe Tribe and the purpose, and kind of poo-pooing the whole idea. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that, because I've got bigger things to worry about, which is my healing right now, and just find a real job so that it's just easier. So it kind of took a back pedal for quite a while. And then using all my tools, it's like, nope, just step out of your own way and dive deep. Because what have you got to lose? Really, nothing. I mean, you enjoy doing the work. So I dove deep in New Zealand. I tried my best to make it work. And it was challenging financially, because it's a side hustle. I think Rich Roll was talking about it. These side hustles that people do, which is actually important, because it's our creative side. It's our passion side, right? These
absolutely.
side hustles. So keep sparking that. So slowly, over now 3.5, 4 years, it's kind of sparked. Hong Kong has been an amazing place for it to be nourished and nurtured. And this year, right now, I'm taking a bit of a sabbatical for the next, it's been 2 to 3 months, and it will probably be another month or so, revamping my website and really streamlining what is the Vibe Tribe. And I'm going to go seek professional help with a business coach, and also look at, okay, how can I leverage this into something a little bit more organized? Because I'm such a kind of go with the flow kind of person, and ride this vibe and ride that vibe. But now I think I have to make it even more succinct, especially with these opportunities that are coming up for me. So that's how it began, and I hope it will continue.
Well, I don't think you give yourself enough credit either. I mean, you've done some great things for companies already with the Vibe Tribe.
Yeah, trying. I mean, I just do me.
Yeah.
And I think that's people, when I'm being interviewed for work, people go, what's your superpower? And I just say, just be me, and don't go too far out of my depth. Don't try and present myself as knowledgeable in an area that I'm not. There are experts now out there in every possible field. So I'm not a microplastic scientist that can talk about, this and all these big words. That I just speak the language I know, and stay aligned to that, and use what I've learned both personally and professionally to try and amplify, which is why I have a hashtag called Raise Your Vibe. It's like, how can I help you get to the next level, not for the sense of achievement or egoic gain, just like, how can I help you do your work? Because I feel like if we had more of that, in the sense of compassion and in the sense of elevation for each other, if I had that even earlier, then, I don't know, maybe I would have had better tools, but then I wouldn't be where I am now. So.
Well, I think in your work is really important, and I'm oversimplifying this for sure, but one of the things that you do with a company, with their brand, is help them be more conscious of our environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so,
slowly, but yeah, that's the end goal. That's the end point. Yeah.
Well, and Sonali and I talked about this too. Like, we're moving from something that used to be sort of corporate social responsibility, like the bigger brands are doing it just because they sort of feel like they have to for good PR.
It's now trendy and it looks good.
Yeah. But I mean, if companies aren't realizing that this is a really important strategy just to stay alive, because consumers are becoming more savvy and they're going to start. I mean, we're both wearing something that is eco-friendly. I've got a shirt that's made out of recycled materials.
Yeah. This isn't eco-friendly, but it's upcycled.
Upcycle, thank you. Which
repurposed fashion.
Yeah. So tell everybody what upcycled actually means, and I'll get back to what we were talking about.
So upcycled fashion. Again, I'm not going to paint myself at all as a good citizen from the very beginning. I was the perfect consumer, Paul. Oh my gosh. And this was only less than a decade ago. You know, I was living in China. I was in Beijing, and then I moved to Shanghai, and I had a position that allowed me to shop. And shopping was... I loved shopping. I still do love shopping, but I just don't shop. I shop with my eyes. I like looking now, but I would buy literally a new outfit every week to wear out on Friday or Saturday. And upcycled, this whole concept. In New Zealand, we have things called hand-me-down stores or op shops, opportunity shops with all this now vintage kind of, it's a whole new word now. It's all fashionable. So I kind of knew about it, but I knew about upcycled clothing because it was cheap, because you're a student. So you could buy like cheap clothes.
Yes.
And secondly, you could be quirky. You could like be your own identity, right? But it was really till I came to Hong Kong 2.5 years ago. And I was introduced to Cristina Dean from Redress. And I really didn't know much about fashion pollution. I knew about fast fashion, but I didn't know the depth of fashion pollution. I didn't know it was the second most polluting industry in our world. And the layers of...
Second to oil.
To oil. And then the layers of the pollution. So it's, first of all, who makes your clothes, right? So what kind of work environments are these humans in that make our clothes? And what kind of dyes are used to dye our different clothing, the chemicals that, first of all, these humans have to touch and breathe. So it becomes a public health thing. And then all these colors running into our oceans. And then the factories that take, to produce this. The cotton that needs to be grown, so that's land, pesticides, water, and then you pack it all up in its individual plastic, then you ship it to the store, and then we buy it. Dude, I was one of the ones that was like 5 t-shirts for 100. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
totally
absolutely.
One of those people.
Yeah.
So that when I met Cristina Dean and saw what she was doing with Redress and studied more, I was shocked. I was almost disgusted at myself that I just didn't know, right? So I was like, wow, now start walking your talk. If you're going to become passionate about this, you've got to also walk the talk. So upcycle for me, or repurposed, is a circular loop. I do buy a few things new, like underwear.
That makes a little bit of sense.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
And there have probably been in the past 2 years 3 to 5 new items, like brand new off the shelf. But apart from that, it's been a conscious effort to buy upcycled, repurposed fashion. So when I do travel, I am one of those travelers that will look for upcycled, repurposed fashion stores and do the fun thing of hunt. I still get my little kick from like, ooh, I'm buying something new. And it's amazing that something someone has worn, I get a buzz. Like this sweater, if you see it in the video, this is from Redress's pop-up store, and it's a very well-known Italian fashion label called Missoni. And I saw this and I was like, I've always wanted to own a Missoni. A, could never afford one. And B, when I saw this, I was like, what? $150 Hong Kong for a sweater that probably would have cost, I don't know, $2,000 to $3,000.
Wow.
So I was like, and And then this is my style. Like, I don't think I think I'll wear this when I'm a grandma.
Yeah.
You know? People
Right.
probably think it looks like a grandma's carpet.
No, it's
but
cool.
I don't care.
It's cool.
So it's about the circular loop.
Okay.
So repurpose and upcycle is, don't try your best not to buy anything new, and take care of it as well. So you don't necessarily have to buy a lot of things. It's also the care in what you already have. So you're not just mistreating your clothes. You know,
Right.
there's a respect for everything that you own, not because it's replaceable, because in the world we live in, you can always buy something to replace it, but actually pay respect for that object that was made and that you own, and wash it with care, fold it with care. You know, like if there's a little hole, sew it already. So there's a whole, for me, a holistic concept to even an article of clothing.
Yeah.
And I'm not always this deep, but we're having this conversation. But that's really how I'm trying to imbibe. That's what I'm trying to imbibe in my life.
Yeah. Well, it's a major polluter in landfills. Like, I was shocked when I heard
the 150,000 tons a day.
oh my gosh. Yeah. I think it's 150 tons a day just in Hong Kong, which is astounding.
Yep.
And if it's just a matter of, I know H&M does it and Zara does it, which are major clothing manufacturers, but they've got these boxes now where you can just drop clothes off, no questions asked. I think and they'll recycle it and use it for new material. I think that's great.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of, you know, going to a store. It's not just about, like in the US, we have Goodwill, which would typically
Or
not.
Salvation. Do you have Salvation,
Salvation Army,
I love
yes.
Salvation Army. I found some good pieces.
Yeah,
of Salvation Army.
there's some cool stuff to be found, but it sounds like maybe what redress does is, maybe this is what upcycling means, if I understand it correctly, is finding or sorting through some of the items and bringing up more of the high end stuff, right?
Trying to basically rescue them. For example, redresses business model, which I understand, which, you know, the depth that I understand, it's repurposing clothes that would have otherwise gone into the landfill or be burned. So they have tons and tons of clothes that are still on trendy enough to be worn now, and giving them a whole new life. And the work that they do is phenomenal. And there's more and more pop-ups like this. Like I had my own little stand a few weeks ago with I cleared my wardrobe and was just there with the community, just a little pop-up in Shenzhen here in Hong Kong. There's another one on the 2nd of March called Hand Me Down Collective that a girlfriend's doing. So it's because it's trendy. It's like, you know, we haven't even touched on plant-based eating and all this stuff, but because of these trends, necessary trends, it's becoming, the movement is growing into business models for even grassroots concepts, just like, let's have like the old lemonade stand on the sidewalk, you know, now let's have a rack of clothes. And there's a place I walk past and it's not clothing, it's books. And it's very rare. I think it's the only one I've seen. They literally just have a bookshelf. Help yourself for free.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
In Hong Kong. And that's cool because I see it where I come from in New Zealand. There's sometimes even just like help yourself to apples if there's a orchard or books. But in Hong Kong, there's just like Goodwill. Like Goodwill. Like, we need that. It's so cool. And how good do you feel when you give? And how good do you feel when you take, knowing the intention is like, this is just for you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
no
nice.
questions asked. So we should kind of do that with clothes as well, if it's excess. But redress, you know, the clothes that they sell, it just goes back to different funding. So
that's
great
good.
business model.
It is. It's great.
Yeah.
I think that's probably going to be attractive to somebody maybe that's new, that's used to sort of shopping at the bigger, you know, Gucci's or whatever.
Yeah. You can find Gucci's too.
Yeah, you can find all the cool stuff.
Missoni's, so you can find some Gucci's.
Sounds like it'd be
we just
kind of
need
fun
more
too.
for men.
Yes, so this is a question for you.
Guys need to get in.
This is a question for you. And I asked this same question of Green Queen, Snolly. Maybe, and I'm new to the game. I started out plant-based 5 years ago. It's still the best thing you can do to reduce your carbon footprint. I'm proud of that. I'm trying to inspire people in my own way to try. That's my whole thing, just try new things. I'm evolving now into looking at the other parts of my life and my family's life and trying to do better with reducing plastic and those sorts of things. So I'm fairly new to the game. Is it because I'm new or is it because men aren't very well marketed to? I don't feel like men are marketed to very well. Sonali had a good point. She said it's because, the dollars that are being spent on the things that this is for, like
The
household goods,
It's usually the women's decision.
it's usually the women's decision.
Yeah,
So I can understand that.
Yeah.
But, I'm thinking of, I don't know if you saw it's an American brand, the Old Spice deodorant commercial with Terry, what's his name?
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, Terry, what's his name? Like breaks through the wall of the shower and he's like totally jacked, like flexes his muscles.
Yeah.
And that's a deodorant brand that at least historically is not one that I would recommend because it has aluminum in it and you should just use coconut oil or something else instead. Yeah. But that's my point is like, if we're trying to reach a demographic of guys that appreciate sort of the silly humor and sort of the tough guy sort of a thing, I don't know if that's bringing in men of that demographic, which would be me, into the eco warrior game. I don't know if we're doing a good job with that, but maybe am I missing something? Or
my humble personal opinion is that, and this has come up to light in the past few months, actually. Well, for me, the past 8 months, because I was speaking to some male friends last year, and I said, I feel like you guys are being left behind, not in a bad way, but the events and the marketing or the information that's being fed is not gender neutral. And here I go, like, now there's like, what's gender neutral? Because there's all of this stuff. But let's simplify it being just male and female, or what you identify with, male and female. And it's definitely weighted more towards the female in regards to these pop-up stores, colors used. So I even suggested to some of my male friends, and I remember talking to you about it, I think when we first met, to create an event for guys where there's, whether like a day where we have talks for men about different nutrition, about mental wellness, have movement. And why couldn't we have a men's secondhand cool store pop-up too with men's clothing? And, because there's these things that say if it's with the clothing, there's 80% racks for women and then 20% for men. And yeah, guys do go, but I don't think we're reaching that as much as we possibly could. How do we do that? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would love to be able to bring more of this awareness. And I don't think it's just because the women make the decisions in the home, because I have a lot of single male friends too that are aware. But it goes down to, I believe, how important is it for you truly? And, we talk about the different kinds of industries we men are in, and you're saying you are plant-based, so that was the seed that has sprouted into these different branches for you, where you've
definitely
gone, okay, plant-based means agricultural animal farming, whether that was you saying, oh wow, this is how much land's needed to raise cattle, and then there's this, or then it goes to cruelty, and there's always a seed that will inevitably sprout.
That's a good way to put it.
But then what I'm also observing and hearing when I do talk to people is that sometimes people don't want the seed. They're just like, it's just not a thing for them.
Yeah.
And, who are we to judge what one person should or shouldn't do? But we're living in the fastest information age ever now. Like, there's no way you do not hear about climate change or fashion pollution. I mean, you literally need to either be living under a rock or a tribe of people in the Amazon still, who are living a very eco-friendly life.
Yes.
So they don't really need to know about this.
Right.
But it's really, we have the information there. Now, what I have a saying, it all starts with you. What genuinely matters to you is what you will act upon, whatever that is. If you need to feel a certain way, you will do certain things because that's what you know what to do to make yourself feel soothed and pacified or elevated or whatever. And there's so many different modalities, and I'm not talking just healthy ones, So it's the same with men being these eco warriors, being more like, is it important for them? Do I pose you a question, or do men have the attitude of, well, my wife will look after it, or it's oh yeah, well, maybe my wife saw that, or my girlfriend saw that, or maybe the helper can find plastic bags that are biodegradable. Is it easier because it's convenient to? Is that what we've created? It's a question. I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just going through these different scenarios in my head because I'm taking it on as something that I want to help with. And so one angle is I'm thinking of, I worked in the corporate world for quite some time, and I'm thinking of me and my buddies in the office, and I'm probably not going to go, hey, Bill, check out this really rad, shirt that I got.
Touch the bamboo cotton.
Yeah, exactly. But I might, in passing just say, oh, I got some cool stuff.
Yeah.
From the angle of overall wellness balance. So there, the 7 dimensions of wellness balance include, only recently, it was the original 6 dimensions, the 7th dimension of environmental has been added. And it's because we're realizing that in order to be wholly well, you have to respect and respond to the environment around you. And if you're just paying no attention to it or trashing the environment around you, there's no way that you can be wholly well. And so if I'm, trying to teach my male friends about, you are going to feel better, you are going to perform better if you are taking responsibility over just that small portion of the environmental piece, whether it's upcycle clothing or making sure that you take your clothing to a place that recycles it instead of just throwing something in the trash. Maybe they'll respond to that. I don't know, but I'm gonna try a few different things.
Do it. I mean, do the experiment. I think we are built. It's inbuilt in us. I feel that we're human. We're having this experience of life, and we get a buzz from contributing. We do. I mean, to be of service. As basic as it is, when you gift something to someone, you feel good, right? You're like, oh my God, I made that person feel good. And it's the same thing if we were to do something for the earth or to create change. If you look at successful measures in work, KPIs, or reaching that budget, it's because we attain a certain thing, we get rewarded with, I achieved that. It can be applied the same way to creating change and good for the earth if we were to look at the eco-warrior stage, And actually, I just remembered that I did a talk for on behalf of a Plastic Oceans, and it was for a corporate banking firm, which I won't name, but at least, if not over half or 50-50 was male, female.
That's good.
Which was awesome. And when Q&A time, the guys were asking questions. So it's happening, but I think it's being able to present the information in a more gender neutral way where it's approachable for all.
Yeah, I think that's it.
I think that's it. Like if you have got a secondhand clothing thing and it's like in pinks and purples and it's called like whatever, it's probably something that automatically the program for a guy sees it and just flicks the page or scrolls past the screen because of the colors, and it will be interesting to see how we map that this year because there's huge stuff happening this year.
So in your experience with the pop-up shops, now you haven't been to every one in the world, but you have some experience. You are seeing male clothing there, and you are seeing males there. It's just more like an 80-20-ish.
Yeah, well, it's here in Hong Kong.
Okay.
If you were to go, when I have traveled in the States, I tend to predominantly go to New York and California. California is its own other place.
Yes, it is.
So the guys there are very into they're open to that. New Zealand, Australia, it's been part of that. I think even in Britain, in that area, in Sweden, it's fine. I think there's just something, and I may be wrong, but in Asia, it's a little bit more challenging to get that out, the message out there. We're still, I feel, culturally very new to this whole concept of buying someone else's clothes that they wore.
Right.
Because we are in a city that promotes shopping, very much so.
Yeah, I said the national sport is shopping. Well, Sonali said that. I thought it was trail running, but Sonali said it was
shopping and eating.
And eating. Yeah, that's true. It's true.
I mean, spend the whole day in a mall under fluorescent lights and move from one shop, have coffee, shop, then have lunch and shop, and afternoon tea. And then, it's a big day. And there's no judgment on that. It's just that's what we have accustomed ourselves to. But there's a shift. For sure, there's a shift.
Talked a little bit earlier, speaking of shift, I'm going to shift topics. Getting into a parasympathetic state is a challenge for us in 2019, even for those of us that are aware of the need to do it. I think this is one of the reasons that wellness retreats are sort of emerging as a popular thing. I've got a quick stat that I thought was interesting. So if you just look at worldwide wellness as an industry, in 2017, it was listed at 4.2 trillion US. So big. I don't think that'll surprise anybody. But 639 billion of that was spent on wellness tourism, which you could very easily bucket wellness retreats into. So I know you have done some work with wellness retreats. Do you think that it's only going to continue to grow? And is it because people are having a hard time just getting into that parasympathetic state and calming down? Or is it because we're doing better overall with our money and we just, want to spend it on something cool like that? What are you seeing?
Definitely growth, for sure. It's the new internet. It is the internet. Like when the modem dialed up, the wellness industry dialed up, but we're now in it. It's not even kind of at the start where it's ramping. We're already like reaching the peak of this is the thing, because we're living longer. We all want to be well, whatever well means to us. And there is a standard concept of eating well, moving our bodies, less screen time, sleep, which is like golden for me. And so I think how we are investing our holiday and spare time is now looking more for these wellness retreats. I have a interesting relationship with the word retreat, because it's as if we are escaping something from where we are now, which is our modern day busy lives, and we're retreating to the quiet of, let's say, Chiang Mai or Mexico or wherever we want to transport ourselves to. So retreat is good because the word is good because we can take ourselves to that place, and that's where we're choosing to spend our money. And now it's twofolded. Wellness retreats, fantastic, but how well is it not just for you, but for our earth? So I'm really looking into eco wellness retreats. So, we're all connected, Paul. Everything is connected.
So when you
Everything is connected.
Sorry to interrupt you. So when you say eco wellness retreat, just to make sure everybody's on the same page. So we're looking at how we get our water when we arrive there, to how we even get there.
How we get there. I've been pulled up going, oh, Cristina, you talk about being good for the environment and this, but you travel a lot. And the only answer I have is that when I do travel, I'm trying to create change in the destination that I go to.
Yeah.
With the awareness that I bring, whether it's through conscious cinema or talking or sharing the path of yoga or whatever. And so I'm hoping I kind of, in some way, not balance it out, but contribute a little bit more rather than just going and it's all about me and consuming. I'm rather giving my time. But eco more as in, is this place built with sustainable repurposed wood? Is the water maybe filtered through and reuse the toilet water as the final stop for all the gray wash from the dishwashers that wash all their dishes in the restaurant? Are they trying to source locally, farm to table? Are they, not changing your bed sheets do we change our bed sheets every day at home? No. It's a luxury to have. Do we really? I know it feels good, but if you're staying in a hotel for 3 to 5 days, just use the same sheets. Towels, okay, maybe if it's like you've got grime on them, but it's these little things. So the wellness retreat is a luxury for those that can afford it. You're saying, is it a trend? It already is. It's happening. We're choosing to spend our money towards that because we all need our hand to be held in some way or form to reach that state of space. But I want to up the next level to, if it's well for you, how well is it also for the earth?
Yeah, that's good.
Because we're all connected. So if we're like doing stuff for us and we feel great, but what was what we left behind with what we did there for 5 days? And then also, with that, it's like, if we did well for us, what is this business doing? It becomes this whole concept of the circular loop again. What are we spending our money on? Because every dollar has a vote. So if there's a specific niche of businesses we can support, they'll only grow more, it's an interesting model. And once you start thinking about it, you're like, oh, right. Okay, well, how does that puzzle fit? And how does this puzzle fit? And your choices become a little bit more streamlined. Yeah. So what is wellness? And another thing I say to my clients is, here we are strategically looking at businesses and growing and branding and all of this, and getting our paycheck and being able to go on these holidays. But what happens to our earth at the same time?
Right.
We are working so hard, and who knows what we're doing? Like, we may not have an earth in a decade or two or three, because we're all working so hard and leaving this footprint.
Right.
So that's what I mean. Like, let's take wellness to the next level as well.
So an eco-friendly retreat for some of the reasons that you mentioned, I think that's fantastic.
And they're out there and they're growing as well. Mm-hmm.
So assuming that you've got some of those boxes checked, what are some of the other things that you like to see in a wellness retreat? I've never been to one, but I'm assuming there's going to be some disciplines of fitness and meditation and probably detox and fasting and that sort of stuff. Based on your experience that you've helped promote them and been an instructor at them and those types of things, what are some of the things that you like to see?
I'm so lucky that I've had opportunities to experience this out of my own finances, and also been invited to write for a few. So again, we're all connected. It's a holistic thing. So definitely food is thy medicine. Of course, the good food. The good food. Yeah. Food is thy medicine. You are what you eat. Movement. I know that's your thing. So that's your thing, movement. And moving is a way to not just increase ourselves in a physical sense, but also mental health, so there's that. Definitely, you were talking about kind of these detox programs. All of this is good. One thing I am going to implement in the retreats that I've been invited to help facilitate more is this word called play. We don't, and play, I mean by creative things, painting, writing, dancing, curiosity, like not thinking you know everything, and not necessarily having a program of you're going to have this green juice and you're going to have that, but maybe have 30-40 minutes of just pieces of paper and paint and I don't know, other stuff that you can like build something and just be that, have that Lego set again that we used to. And I think that's really important to integrate into wellness programs now, which is why I've taken this sabbatical, is with Brand Your Vibe, going into corporate or businesses and looking at the element of play again, and really tapping back into that side, because it's a part, like art therapy, it's a part that we don't tend to think is part of the pillars of holistic wellness, but being a student is so important to our mental health. We have this capacity to continue to learn, and we somehow kind of forget that, I think, as we get older. Our first 18, 20 years, we're like studying and learning and feeding and doing things that we love, and we kind of forget that because we get too busy. And I think that's a huge part of ourselves that we need to nurture.
That's really interesting. I think an argument could be made that it would tap into the intellectual wellness dimension. Sort of thinking about art and drawing and working that creative side of the brain is absolutely intellectual. And it's sort of ironic, I've talked about the 7 dimensions of wellness a million times, but if I ever forget one, ironically, it's the intellectual wellness dimension. I think it does get sort of pushed aside. And, you mentioned, are you thinking about the quality of food and whether or not it's eco-friendly and fitness and meditation? So I think that would be unique and really, really necessary. If you're going to come out of a wellness retreat with one of your objectives being a student of understanding the wellness dimensions and hopefully leaving a little bit more well than when you came, I think you would have to tap into that truly. So that's really cool.
And,
I like that.
Joy and what that brings. And it brings an element of joy. And another thing I have for the retreats that I'm working in is you talk about, we go somewhere to get well because we think we are not well, right? So we go to get fixed or healed and I get that. I do that too. And then we come back and then the residue of that lasts for how long? Realistically, I'd say 10 days in a lifestyle that majority of us live in the city that we currently call home. And then what? So for me, it's impacting and creating an internal vibration that lasts because you have a toolkit.
Yeah, the tools.
The toolkit.
Yes,
that's what I want to do. Is that's what I hope to give people is don't forget this. Go back to this when you're feeling a certain way. Use this. You've invested all this time and money and you're just coming to be healed. And then you go back and you're like feeling good and then you're back into it. But don't forget what you have. So with that is follow-up programs and one-on-one calls of just using a support network, the tribe.
Yes.
To raise your vibe constantly. And that's where community for me is so important.
Yeah, it's not going to be, unfortunately, just a magic thing that happens and sticks with you. You're going to get beaten back down by 2019.
It's called life.
Yeah, it is. Those tools that you talk about are absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
And I had Andrew Silito on last week, and he was talking about wellness balance and how he's brought in sort of the business psychology piece of it into people's lives beyond their work, and people are feeling a lot better. But one of the things that I like that he says about, he calls his the 4 keys. He says that you put in the work. And I love that. I love that because
it's part of the yoga path as
is
well.
It? Okay.
Yeah, put in the work.
You have to, because it's just not going to happen
relentless.
Without it.
Practice. And I feel that I'm still very early on as a student of yoga. But if it's the practice of yoga, and I'm not just talking about the physical aspect, but the 8 limbs of yoga, and you have to do the work in all aspects of your life. It's not just your business and the job you go to. It's in your relationships. It's in what you spend your money on. It's like, what do you surround yourself with? Who do you surround yourself with? What do you watch? What are you feeding your entire being through your skin, through your eyes, through your mouth? Everything. It's work. And it's not like, oh my God, this is like we don't need to see it that way. It's the gift of like, holy moly, I have this life and I can do this work. What an opportunity.
Yes.
Every morning, gratitude. I'm awake. I get to do the work. And how can I, vibrate that out to everyone around me? And then they feel that vibe. And then, it just goes, it's like a one of those games that's just like boing, boing, boing. Everyone's just like bouncing off each other, and hopefully that's ultimately I think where we want to get to, where you're just like, hey, human connection. Basics.
Yeah, you can say work. Another way to look at it is even saying is energy balance, or energy blocks, like how much energy today do you need to put into this dimension, like social, emotional? I'm going to be going to this event.
There's definitely a lot more work today, I feel, even though we're of our certain age. Sorry to interrupt you, but
no, sorry.
Because there's so much information.
Yeah.
Right? I definitely feel like a stoic or simplified life, less is more. Definitely it allows one to be more at peace. Hence the whole new off the grid, lifestyle. People just like, I just want to buy my dream, tiny home, vegetable garden, ocean. Don't need much. Just need what I need to have good food. Not a lot of food, just good whole food, healthy food. We don't need to eat as much as we eat. We don't even need to eat as much as we eat. So it's like this whole concept of how much do we really need? But today, because there's so much information in so many different aspects, I think we've trained ourselves to think there's always more that I can do.
Yes.
And it comes in our field, especially when we talk about physical. We measure our strength, our muscle, how high can we jump, right? So there is more. You can improve. There are certain areas in our lives where I think measurement of progress is great and necessary for us to keep ourselves on the edge and challenged. But there are areas in our lives where I think we need to soften a little bit and just, not be so pushing of us in certain areas of our life. And that's like the wheel of life, the circle of life. And with my corporate clients, I was like, I put on the song from The Lion King, The Circle of Life, when I was introducing, because I was like, where's Zumba? But it's that circle of life. And when you draw out the different areas, these 7 pillars of wellness, and you kind of go, the epicenter is where you need to do the most work, the core, the foundation. And as you move out towards the circle, that's where you're feeling you're more in flow, that state of flow. And then when you map it out, you kind of go, oh, well, that's where I need to do a little bit of work. And that kind of goes back to what you were saying, Paul, when you were like, oh, I'm just new into this eco or this whole, that's an area where the environmental pillar may have been closer to, and no judgment, it just was it was, right?
That's right.
Closer to the core of where it begins, that seed, and then it sprouts out a little bit more. And I think once you become aware of one facet, it drip feeds into the next automatically in time. There's no way that it cannot, because we're all connected. It's all connected.
Yeah. And the daily balance is something to understand too. It's like, well, I have it figured out now today, so tomorrow's no problem. It's like this understanding that you're going to have those tools that we've talked about to assess what today's energy balances are going to require to stay in balance in the different dimensions. So you may be in autopilot already in physical, and so you don't have to put as much energy into being balanced over there. But maybe the environmental requires more work. I know it does for me for the reasons we mentioned. So I think it's just understanding that it's a daily work. It's a daily balance
it's a self-check. It's
you
can just sit for a moment, for 5 minutes, and be like, all right, how true am I being to what's important to me in the work that I do? Where do I need to soften a little, and where do I need to potentially up the ante? And, also for the kind of offerings that we have people that we look after their well-being. So that's a very energetic job, because we're literally giving energy, not just vocally, but physically as well. So we also have to keep ourselves balanced. There's a saying, the wounded healer, and you got to heal yourself first before you can. It's the same thing. You got to love yourself first before you even know what does love mean? So again, I go back to my one tagline, it all starts with you. The only person, thing, moment that you have to check it in with is you and your present state now. Those two things. You now. Kind of just.
And how do you, I know with meditation, at least for me, part of the thing has been figuring out how to work it into just my day without saying, I'm going to stop now and meditate. Like if something would, yeah. And like something makes me upset or sad or whatever, like being able to just sort of recognize that emotion and then just step away. So how do you recalibrate? Is there anything that you have figured out to do that?
You're like, bullseye. So the past 2 to 3 weeks, Paul, have been extremely challenging for me. So talk about like work. I've really had to do more work than than like normal, because I'm working all the time. It's just it's relentless in a positive way. But it's for me, it's ritual. Brushing your teeth is the same for me as meditating. It's just a necessity that has to be. It doesn't even have to be integrated into my day. It is part of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's what I do to set the mental frame for mental health. People don't talk enough about mental health. We're talking about dental health, physical health, gut health, eye health, all of this, but mental health is huge.
Yes.
And so my morning ritual, whether it be even a 5-minute meditation or lying in bed, looking around, grateful that I'm alive, just something that just anchors me back in, is what will remind me throughout the day to go back to that feeling. Because emotion is such a powerful anchor. We're triggered by smells and memories that bring us straight back into that feeling. You can, it's placebo, you can feel it. So during the day, if I'm challenged, and there are many times during the day that I stop. Just stop and breathe. It's so cliche, but this breath is an automatic thing. We just do it. How many times, like I tell my students, how many times do you stop and just that one breath changes your nervous system.
Oh yeah.
Instantly. And so when I'm feeling, and the past 2 weeks I've been taking lots of deep breaths. Like sometimes every minute I'm like breathing all the time, and but I just go back to breath, because that we're talking about parasympathetic, fight or flight. You can't be in any other state but in the present moment when you're just focusing on deep diaphragm breathing. Not the shallow, just to your throat breath, but really, when I talk to people in meditation, it's breathe past your heart space, deep into the lungs, past the diaphragm, and into your belly button. Like go down, like breathe in, deepest breath of the day, and hold that like it's a golden blanket around you. Hold it, and then exhale. And that one breath, guaranteed, you're already like, oh, whoa, I needed to actually breathe. And that for me is what allows me to stay as close to a neutral emotional state. And that's why sometimes I have to just be breathing for a long time. If I'm filled with fear, anxiety, normal emotions, I go back to that. Yeah.
That's good. And I'll bring some N=1 experiment into that and a little bit of science. I had Andrew on last week and I he's a business psychologist. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get some
tips here, some
tips.
Work. Yeah.
And I shared, some of the not silly, just I have a weak mental game, and I shared that on my show a million times. And I have a whole bunch of different things I've tried, anchoring and positive mental state and trying to rewire neural pathways, which are all good tools, and I still use them. And I said, Andrew, what else? What else? And what did he say?
Breath.
Exact same thing you just said.
Man.
And I was like, what's crazy about that is I've tried these other little tricks out on the bike, and I'm sort of getting too hot and my heart rate's getting too high, and I'm trying to figure out a way to recenter and calm down and finish my climb or whatever it is I'm trying to do. I said, when I give up on everything else and I just go, okay, let's just do some deep breaths, you can watch the heart rate monitor drop. And every morning I take my heart rate variability, which taps into your autonomic nervous system, which taps into your automatic breathing.
Yeah.
And I think this is interesting, on piggybacking on what you said, because I don't know if this is the proper term for it, but our breathing can get, even though it's automatic through the autonomic nervous system, it can get shallow, especially if you get stressed. It can be like, you just get really shallow. So what you described, breathing down below the heart, breathing deep. If I'm having a stressful moment, the app that I use will actually show you whether or not you're stressed and what your heart rate variability score is in real time. And so if I notice that it's low, the score is low and my stress is high, I will just take some deep breaths. And you will see in real time your heart rate variability score go up and your stress go down. So I know it's like maybe some people listening or watching think that that's just a basic tip, but I think that's actually a really, really helpful big tip.
But it's challenging for most to do because we don't, at the moment in how we live, naturally have the time.
Oh yeah, I don't have time to take a deep breath.
There's no time, Jay. I got to get the deadline out. Gotta go. I'm feeling angry. I just want to feel angry. And then I'm talking to myself right now, by the way, like, having this conversation, especially the past 2 weeks, it's like, dude, just sit down and take a breath, and do that. And another thing that, for the listeners and watchers is close down a few of the other sensorial things. So when you take a breath, close your eyes.
Interesting.
Just take.
But not while you're riding a bike.
Not while you're riding a bike.
I'm just kidding.
But if you're not riding, trek through. But if you're in a place where you're at the office, take yourself away from the situation, or if you can, and you can shut down another sense, and you can really just feel and just tap into the breath and the feeling of the air against your nostrils, and just have the darkness help the nervous system calm as well.
That's cool. Cool.
So sensorial deprivation.
I don't know why my brain went here, but I was thinking about how my wife and I have very much a yin and yang. She's the adventurous one that always wants to go do really cool stuff, and I'm the one that's always trying to, anchor us down just a little bit. So we have this good mix. We go do cool things, but we don't try to get in a million things into a day. And so it's a good balance. We like to resolve conflict in a very different way. And the way she does it actually, I think, tunes into probably the best way to get calm. She likes to get mad about something, or she doesn't like to get mad about something, but she'll get upset about something. Yeah. I will recognize that she's upset about something, and I'll just...
Yay. Like that, first of all, recognition of being upset. Good husband.
Well, yes, but if you ask her, here's where the problem comes in. I will, because we've been together for a long time, I will see that she's upset, and I will, as she says, I will just keep pushing until she finally tells me what it is, and she just needs a minute to breathe.
Yeah.
She's trying to calm down so that she can actually get centered and like have a good conversation and not be mad. And I should do that. I should really figure out a way to just be like, okay, I know she's upset about something, but if I just keep pushing her while she's trying to calm down, that's not going to help.
Maybe you can go and also
I should go breathe. Just go on the other sides of the house and breathe. And it always is something so small. We feel silly that we did it anyways.
From my recollection of relationships, of course. And it's that have you read the book 5 Love Languages? Okay. I'll send the link to you, but it's very interesting looking at human relationship, especially love relationship, and the languages, the 5 different languages that Gary talks about of how we like to love someone else. So we have different, one could be like acts of service. So you like to cook and you like to clean and you like to prepare something for your loved one. One is the sense of touch, you always want to have like your foot or that kind of feeling, or time, acknowledgement. Do you hear me? So people have usually top two of the 5. So it's when we learn what the other person, what they need, and
actually pay attention
to it. And do the work. There's that word again. The work of like, okay, well, she needs to go and breathe. I'm going to try what she needs to do, because if she was to be doing that, I wonder how I'd react, and just go and breathe too. And if, then at the end of the day, I believe like if that's what the person needs to become a better version of themselves at that current state, that's where I think compassion kicks in. But hey, relationships, that's a whole other island over there. So that's a whole nother podcast. And I'm definitely not a relationship expert. So I just do the best that I can.
I wasn't sure what made me go there, but I just the breath, the thinking of the breath and calming the body down is I think is worth people considering if they don't already do it.
For most situations. Yeah. I think we should teach our children to breathe more too. You know, you should do that with your kids, Paul.
Well, it's what's so cool about.
I mean, they have that in schools now.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like they teach these kids. First of all, like we've been talking about being eco warriors. My son, his teacher in his class, I talked about this with Sonali too. She noticed we were using those little plastic Ziploc bags for his sandwiches every day.
Sorry, I just said it, Brad. Oops, I get in trouble.
Well,
they're going to become. I think they're going to not exist in hopefully the next 2 years.
Yeah.
There's Glad Wrap Ziploc bags, right?
And it wasn't even on my radar. I hadn't even really picked up that environmental wellness dimension yet. And so his teacher said, how about, Camden, ask your mom and dad if it's okay if we just reuse this for the whole week for your sandwich. It's not going to hurt anything. It's not dirty.
Yeah.
And so he would bring it home every day and we'd repack it.
Feeling cool because he's contributing,
cool.
right?
Yeah, and I felt cool too. I was like, this is really great that not only that his school is teaching him this, but that we're, just doing something very small.
Project together.
And then, we've changed it to just using a different container overall that's just reusable every single time. So.
Yeah. Awesome. It's good to get the young ones in because we're leaving. This is our legacy.
And so the reason that conversation came up is because they're teaching those types of things too. So they'll see a situation where a couple of kids will have a bad interaction or an interaction where somebody gets angry or they both get angry. And that's what they'll encourage is let's go spend some time away from each other and take a deep breath and, so just meditation 101. And they'll have a recess or they'll have physical activity outside and then they'll come and meditate for 5 or 10 minutes before they go start their work.
Do you remember quiet time
in
kindergarten?
Yeah.
We need quiet time for adults.
Oh yeah. I love it.
Remember when you'd be like, oh, let's have nap time? I mean, I don't really remember, but I was a kindergarten teacher for Blip. And I just remember quiet time, 20 minutes of just stillness.
Yeah,
and we need
that's
that
a good
for
point.
adults.
Yeah.
And Corbett was like, the quiet room.
Well, and I
no
think
phones allowed, just chill.
As we are getting companies to understand more and more about like the spiritual side of things.
All these
and
7 or 8 or 10 have ever many realms of wellness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily woo anymore. And oh, wow, there's study after study showing that a more well-balanced employee is going to be a more productive employee. And then companies start going, whoa, and they're not going to cost as much in insurance. Oh, that's pretty cool. So, and they're going to be more creative if they are given 15 or 20 minutes break to go take a walk or quiet time or whatever and come back to their desk. If you're working on a creative project, there's nothing better that you can do than get up and walk away.
Yeah. Well, every 40 minutes, just stretch your body, move your body, take a breath. And that's what I also say to my clients. Every 40 minutes, if you're sitting down, walk around, take 5 deep breaths, regenerate your whole, get some red blood cells reoxygenated and go back to your desk. Even if you're crunching figures and looking at a spreadsheet, no one's going to die if you take 2 minutes out. No one will really care if you take 2 minutes. Yeah. It's only you.
And again, tell me you don't feel better when you go back and sit down and it's like, and there,
you're just
this is a more,
okay, right. I've got this. And again, it goes back to, it all starts with you. You're the only one that's accountable for your current situation, really, because you're responsible for your reactions and how you're treating yourself. Yes. At the end of the day, it's all us. It's all on us, man.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Like it or not.
Well, and I just hate this term work-life balance because I think it makes people think of it in a 50-50 two-dimensional sense, and it's just not. I mean, the life piece of it, what does that include? Oh, that's everything.
Yeah.
So
work is in the life.
It is. It's one of the dimensions.
Yeah. It's the same piece of pie.
Yeah, I think that alone, just getting people to understand that is huge, that it's 50% of your energy work shouldn't be just on occupation.
I think we're definitely there. It's happening. The movement, you wouldn't be having the work you do. Neither would I. This podcast wouldn't exist. It's part of who we are, who we all want. I believe there's many of us that wish for that. Even those that, that I know that work so hard. they want to learn to meditate. They want to learn to be able to move again. They want to lose some body weight so that they feel energy. They want to not drink so much. They want to, there's all this wanna. So it's happening. It's just a slow journey for some. And I think we all need to support each other in being that whole, well self, and for our environment, because, you know, we're all connected.
Yes.
Go back to that again.
Yes, we are.
For sure.
I've had you for a long time. Before we go, just a couple of quick questions. So I know you've got some exciting projects coming up in 2019.
Yep.
And I want to really quickly talk about a project that you worked on in the past too. So there's a really cool, I guess it's a couple different places here in Hong Kong. It's called Mana. Mana, yes.
Which is actually a New Zealand word as well. So when I came across it, I was like, okay, here's serendipity. Yes.
Oh, cool.
Good old Mana.
Yes. So the first time we met, we actually had a meeting before we were both on the Let Us Be Heroes screening panel.
Yeah, thanks to Rebecca.
Yes, thanks to Rebecca.
Yeah.
Amazing doc. We'll put in the show notes. I talk about it almost all the time, but check it out if you haven't already. We had really good coffee. Now, this coffee was it was plant-based, so I could drink it. Now, this wasn't just a black coffee. I mean, I can have a black coffee anywhere, but it was, if I remember correctly, it was black coffee, but they also put cacao in it and
raw cacao butter.
Raw cacao butter. Okay, that's the difference, because I've tried to recreate it and I haven't been able to.
You cannot recreate the Mana coffee.
Just go to Mana.
If the founder was listening, he'd copyright the whole thing.
Yeah.
No, it's basically the bulletproof vegan version.
Okay.
So bulletproof coffee is your black coffee, your ghee, your brain octane oil, and your collagen. So I've got some posts that I need to do. I'm making my own vegan bulletproof coffee at home.
Oh,
nice. It doesn't taste as good as Mana because I don't have the coffee barista, you know.
Yeah.
It's a French press. But you can buy vegan collagen now. So I've got some. Okay. And then I'm using coconut oil and raw cacao butter as well, and then just blending it. But that coffee, it's called the cocoa. If you're in Hong Kong, go get a hit of the cocoa. I mean, that sustains me pretty much till 1, 2. So it's the same concept as bulletproof. Okay. And you were like, dang, this is a good coffee.
This is good. Yeah. Because it's just such a treat. I always just have black coffee, and I love the flavor of black coffee by itself, but to have a little something sweet in there with the
and the
fat,
creaminess, it was like good fat.
I hadn't had a coffee like that in a really long time.
Yeah.
And then, the reasoning behind adding the fat in there is, of course, getting across the blood-brain barrier and having sort of the time release, slow caffeine burst versus having a,
the peak, the quick peak,
the
and
quick
then the
roller coaster ride.
Yeah, the roller coaster caffeine, no bueno. Yeah.
So you worked with them as a brand manager to help move their brand from where to where?
Yeah, it was interesting. I came to Hong Kong for one job, landed, and day 2 got made redundant.
Oh my.
Yeah, interesting.
That's fun.
That's for another story. But Bob Z, the founder of Mana, I had met a few times as I was traveling to Hong Kong and really loved what they do, what they standed for. And I was at the very beginning of my environmental pillar. And so for the brand management role, at that point, it was just 2 of us, kind of 2 in the management team. So it was really just supporting his continued vision for his 12 principles that he built the brand on, which is, like free water for all, less food waste, the sustainability angle, community, and all these beautiful things that similarly the Vibe Tribe was kind of based upon. I was like, wow, I could really see if I can support him and create change. So it was more about, I think at the end of the day, what I hope I left with Mana is that the brand was already strong, but that it was stronger, that the community that I was able to meet face to face and reach out to have become even more loyal customers, so that they can continue to grow, and to continue to educate. I think for me, I was learning at the same time about statistics like you on agricultural farming, but also continuing to educate the travelers that would visit Mana as well as the locals about the circular loop of, as Bobsy has a quote, he says, and I hope I get this right, the knife and fork are the most important tools of humanity. Or something like that. But it's really, you are what you eat, and also what you have on your plate. It's just like clothes, Paul. It's like the fashion pollution, how that tomato got to your plate or avocado has a whole story. It's like a book on how this avocado was grown, right? From seed to water to farmer to, it's amazing. And just to go back, I know we can talk for 50,000 hours, but the gratitude part is another thing that I do try and practice daily before I eat is, and it goes back to, I was raised a Catholic, but now I'm a spiritual person, but to pray before I eat, and just a quick thanks and a shout out to thank you for this food that I can even afford a meal. And also to the people that grew the food and prepared this food. Awesome. I get to eat this amazing food, and just take 30 seconds to be I'm grateful for this food.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And energetically, your body is in a sympathetic state to receive the nourishment of that food, which is why we talk about I don't know if that's scientifically proven, but I'm definitely much calmer when I eat my meals instead of in front of the computer or scrolling through my phone while I'm eating. Be present for 10, 15 minutes or longer if you're a slow chewer, to be with that food and just receive the goodness. Be with friends, but just focus on the yummy food.
Yeah,
so that's another element of gratitude as well. You could try that with some of your vegetable curry.
Yes. Here you are again for the third time, vegetable curry.
Hey, vegetable
I'm still
curry.
thankful for you.
Yeah, I'm thankful for you for all these years.
Yes, exactly. You're still wonderful. Good old vegetable curry. Love you.
I'm going to have a spoon of this damn vegetable curry.
You got to, yeah. There's always some in there. Well, just doing that, it gives you an opportunity to get into that parasympathetic state. I mean, it really is difficult for people to do it for a minute a day. So maybe that's their first strategy to try it.
Just put everything down and just eat.
Yeah.
Just be with your food for 5 minutes, and
maybe it's even outside and get some vitamin D or put your feet on the earth or something.
Yeah, or just, get out of the office or just... But how often are we all eating and scrolling on the existence of the multitasker?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Although if they want to do a little bit of gratitude and then listen to the Boost Health podcast after they've done that, maybe that's okay.
Yes, they can. Okay, I'll give the Boost podcast that.
Just kidding. All right, so what's coming up this year? I know you're excited about a few things.
A bit of a sabbatical. I'm revamping my website. I'm streamlining it. I'm going to reach out to a business coach. I've got a couple of retreats that I'm working with, and hopefully we can get some tribe in. So one is working with Nepal and yoga. They're based in Kathmandu. They've asked me to facilitate the movement aspect of that, the yoga practice of that. Another is a retreat in Siargao in the Philippines, a surf and yoga retreat. It's with a studio I worked with last year in Paris. So they've invited me to facilitate the movement in the morning. So I'm going to hopefully open up the bodies for some surf time.
Cool.
I cannot surf to save my life, but I am a mermaid. And so I just get out in the ocean and I try.
Nice.
So that's a couple of things. I am working with another company that you'll see in the next, hopefully, month or so, using repurposed nylon from the oceans to create some products.
Oh, cool.
So that's short term. And then obviously the constant yoga offering, the corporate brand your vibe packages, which are now happening, and my holistic one-on-one coaching. So
lots of good stuff. You're not one to just be I'm going to be in this lane and just stay here in this lane. You're
well, it's the human doing part, and also marrying the human being in the moment part, which is my kind of yin and yang. And remembering without too much pedal to the metal, but one shot, one life, curate the best you can, because again, it all starts with you.
Yes. Well, I think we've got some insight to this already throughout the conversation, but I always ask every guest how they find their wellness balance. So you know the 7 dimensions of wellness as well as anybody.
We'll do it. Well, I'll do my personal 7 dimensions of wellness, and hopefully I'll stick at 7. So first is ritual for me. So first, time for the self. So I start definitely each morning with meditation and quiet time. And I ease into my day. So that's with the gratitude. And then movement. And it usually will come in 2 forms: yoga, asana, the movement of yoga, which is also a form of meditation because you're with your breath, or at the gym, trying to do some strength exercises. And so it comes to movement. And then it comes to career, to try and do the best that I can to align myself with purposeful work. So that's the career aspect. And from that will come the financial pillar. You know, that it's not a big driver for me. I just need enough. The environmental wellness is the work that I do with, whether it's a plastic ocean.
You're living and breathing that one.
or redress. It's just trying to also walk the talk.
Yeah.
And not be afraid to speak out. Like, you know, I feel that there are some people that say that they want to care for the earth, but then I see them with a plastic cup or something, and I actually call them out. I'm like, dude, what's that? Like, with humor. So there's the environmental wellness. For me, mental health is one of the pillars for sure, and is resonating more and more with me. So that's just doing things that give you the opportunity to share your true self with people. So that's community, friends. And then I think I've gone past 7, but the last one is love and joy. And starts with you, and just with the love and the joy is the connection with the people. I think we lose a lot of that these days. So pick up the phone. If you're in a 3 to 5 minute WhatsApp conversation, we seem to be really scared of hearing each other's voice over the phone. I'm going to use the word scared. It's like, it's just weird. Why am I speaking to you? And I think we need to get out of that. I think we really do. And just like smile at someone. Like you don't know what anyone else is going through. So those to me are the 7 things that I try and orbit around this human body daily. Takes work.
That's a lot of good tips, though. I hope everybody was taking some notes in there.
I'm not saying I do them all at once, but you know, I try.
You got a good toolkit.
Yeah.
And you got a good toolkit. I hope people got some tools out of it. I'm sure if they were paying attention, they got some good stuff.
Thank you.